Hi there, in this video we're going to look at defining a site in Dreamweaver. Now this is the first thing you should do whenever you start a project in Dreamweaver. The files for any website should be managed from a central location. Let's look at this existing site definition here as an example. Now depending on which view you're in, I'm in standard, okay, but if you're in developer, okay, there is the files menu there and it's standard, it's over here in the right, and if you can't find it anywhere else, go to window and come down to files and turn it on. Great, so this is an existing site definition that I've created earlier. And basically it's just peering into a folder that happens to be on my desktop called rendered. And inside that folder, there is an HTML file, there's a CSS file, there's some folders with JavaScript and images and some videos. Okay, let's check it out on the desktop. Here it is on the desktop. Okay, and you can see it's the exact same thing here. Okay, there's my HTML, my CSS, my images folder. Okay, so all our site definition is to link those two together. So let's go and make our own site definition. So inside Dreamweaver, let's go up the top here to Site, and let's go to New Site. Now where it says Site Name here, okay, this is where you get to name your site, and this is just a reference for yourself, so you can type anything in here. Let's say I'm going to call this one my portfolio. Now spaces between the words here are fine. And the important bit here is this local site folder, okay? This is just to tell Dreamweaver where I'm going to keep this website. And in this case, I'm going to click on the Browse button, and I'm going to find my desktop. I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop. I'm going to call this one my_portfolio. Just make sure you don't use any spaces when you're naming your folder name. You use hyphens or underscores instead. Click create, and then I'm going to click choose. Great, so now Dreamweaver knows where I'm going to put all my files. The next thing I'm going to do is tell it where I'm going to put all my images. To do that, let's go to advanced settings, local info, and then up to default image settings. And let's click browse, let's click new folder. Let's type in images and let's click create. Click choose. And that's going to help us when we start putting in images into our website, and say we start pulling them from various places on our hard drive. Dreamweaver is going to be clever and it's going to pick those images up and put them into that images folder. Because remember, everything has to be in that one folder for this to work. Great, so we have defined a site. Let's click on save. Let's have a little quick look at the folder that's created on the desktop, just so that we're clear about what's going on. All right, and there he is, my portfolio. Open him up, and there's an images folder in there. There's nothing going on much, it's not particularly exciting, but that's the folder that everything for my website needs to go in now. So let's jump back into Dreamweaver and create just an example file. Great, so you can see on the right-hand side here, here's my local site. Okay, and there's the images folder. I'm gonna create an HTML document here. We're gonna leave the page empty. Let's hit save. And we're gonna call this one index.html. Click save. You can see Dreamweaver puts it into that folder, and if I check on my desktop, there's my lovely index file. Okay, so that's the reason we create a site definition, just so that everything goes into the right place. Let's go and look now at some of the perks of using a site definition in Dreamweaver. So here in Dreamweaver, I've got an existing site definition here. There's an HTML, there's already images going on in here, and there's a CSS sheet, lots of things going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it up by double-clicking index.html. Okay, it opens up on this left-hand side here. I'm in code view, you might be in split or live, or you might be switched to this developer mode. I've got my index.html and I've got this images folder, and this images folder gets referenced quite a bit in the site. You can see here where I find, you see here it says images/burger menu. Okay, and you can see there'll be images used throughout the site. So there's images there, images there, there's images there. Okay, it gets used quite a bit because there's quite a few images in this site. So let's preview it in a browser just to see what it looks like. So let's go to File, Real-Time Preview, and go to Google Chrome. Great, here's the site, and it's got the beautiful video going on in the background. We've got this image up here. Okay, this is a little image. There is lots of images, 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 images. Okay, so lots going on. So it's being referenced quite a bit. Now, back in Dreamweaver, let's say that you have to change the name of any of your files, okay? So if I do it on the desktop, so in here, and let's say that we've changed it to images, okay, or IMG is quite a common way of calling it as well. But if I do it outside of Dreamweaver, okay, I've kind of snuck around the back and changed the folder name, and Dreamweaver is still referencing this thing called images. So when I preview it, you can see all the images here have all failed to load. So whenever you're making any sort of file changes or file name changes or folders, make sure you do it through the Files panel. So I'm going to change this back to where it was. Okay, and back in Dreamweaver, if I do the exact same thing in here and I say I'd like to rename you, so I've right-clicked, I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Rename. Okay, and I'm going to call this IMG. Okay, this lovely thing pops up and it says, would you like to update all of the code to reference this new folder? And I'd say, yes, please, update all. And what will happen is, can you see the word img here? Okay, is being changed over and over again. It just means if I preview now, hey, all my images are just fine, even though I went and changed the image's folder name. Now, this is true when you rename anything. Say you need to rename your styles menu or any other pages, just do it through this files panel and Dreamweaver will update your code to kind of match things up, and it makes life really easy. So we've now discussed the basics of getting a site started. Let's look at a little bit more in depth. Let's say that I need to adjust my site definition. So let's go to Site, and instead of going to New Sites, let's go to Manage Sites. Okay, here are all my site definitions, and we're going to open up this one we created earlier called My Portfolio. Let's double click it. This is where you can change the site name or change your local site folder, okay, in case you've moved it. Another important tab in here is under Servers. Servers is where you will connect to either your remote hosting site or your testing site. Basically, it's how you're going to put your site on the internet. We then go and click the plus button. And this is where you'd fill in your hosting details. Typically, these are emailed to you from your hosting company, and you'll fill them in here. Now, we're not going to go through all of these steps right now, as there's a separate video that will take you through how to set up your server definition. So let's just click Save. Let's click Save again. Let's click OK. And another one of the features that I like about managed sites is we've made this site definition here for My Portfolio. I've created the local folder for it. I've defined the remote site, okay, connected it to my hosting account. Let's say I need to share it with somebody else, okay, they need to connect to the same website, or let's say I'm just changing computers, okay, from my laptop to my desktop. Okay, what you can do is instead of having to enter those details again, you can click on it and click Export, okay, and I can click OK. And I have this STE file. And the cool thing about this is that it's emailable, shareable, and it just means the other person on the other end, okay, if I hit cancel, they just need to come to the same place, Site Manage Sites, and click Import, and it will bring it in, and a lot of the details are ready for them to start working. You can also delete it in here by clicking this minus. So I've got them selected, I click minus. One of the things that happens is, watch this, if I click minus and I delete the site definition, I say it can't be undone, I'm gonna click yes anyway. Don't worry, okay, if I click OK and done, and I come to my desktop, there's my portfolio site, okay, and there's all the files that I created. So it doesn't actually delete the files from my machine, it's just the definition that gets deleted. Great, so we've defined our local site, we've connected it to a server, we've worked out some of the perks of using this files panel, and the last thing we'll do before we go, and I guess when you are setting up your very first site, is how your first pages work, okay? We've created this page called index.html, and you just need to know that whenever you're creating your very first page on your very first site, you need at least one page called index.html. Why? That's the page that the browser's going to go and have a look for. It doesn't display it, but it's the home page, okay? And every website needs at least one. Other pages you can call what you like, okay? But in terms of this index, it needs to be spelt this way. Let's quickly check it out in a browser. Okay, so if I access, say, adobe.com, and I put in index.html and click return, you can see the browser is displaying that page, but it's not showing it, okay? It keeps it in there nice and hidden. So if you create a site and it has 1,000 pages, but you don't have one index page, okay, the site's not going to load. It's going to come up with a nice big error. Okay, so one last thing to know when dealing with your site and its files is that when you add files outside of Dreamweaver that you might need to update it. Let's look at the images folder over here. Okay, so I've got a bunch of images and say I need to add a new one, okay, and I do it outside of Dreamweaver. So here in my Finder, there's my images folder that I'm looking at, and this is a file I want to add. Okay, I drag it into here. Now, often it can update pretty quickly and you won't need to hit refresh. It's done it there. It's pretty quick and gone and done it. But if it doesn't, you can go down here and hit refresh, and that will force it to go and double check for you. Nice. Okay, my friends, we have learned what a site definition is. We've learned that we use it to connect it to a folder on our desktop, and that all of our files for this particular website needs to go into that one folder. We also use a site definition to connect to our remote server, often our hosting company. And if we're clever, when we rename things, we use this files menu so that Dreamweaver knows to update the code. And last of all, make sure that you have an index.html page. Otherwise, the world will end and your page won't load. Both are bad. All right, that is site definition in Dreamweaver.